CEO of NWAA, and welcome this morning. Just to cover things as I usually do at the start of the webinars, just to say we are still all working from home at NWAA, but as always you can contact us in whichever media you prefer, telephone, email, or even a video call should you want to. I won't go into what I discussed previously about member videos, but needless to say, should you want to make a video of 3 to 4 minutes, just let us know and we can share that on our YouTube channel and promote it to the members. And a reminder that the SC21 Competitiveness and Growth Programme and the NATEC Programme continue as normal, using virtual communications for group meetings, etc. So please contact Catherine Toon for SC21 CNG or Glenn Bullen for NATEP if you would like any information. Just a reminder that we have set up a COVID-19 member support group on the Northwest Aerospace Alliance LinkedIn page. So if you'd like to join that group, just go to our LinkedIn page and follow us and request to join. In the next slide, we have webinars coming up in the future.
No problem.
Yeah. So next Wednesday at 10:30, we having a webinar in partnership with AMRC Northwest, moving from surviving to thriving with digital technology. And I think there is funding available for people who want to get onto that digital journey. So you'll be taken through that next Wednesday. Tuesday, 2nd of June, we're very pleased to announce we've got Clive Lewis back with us from Achieving the Difference. And this is going to be a workshop type webinar, so it'll be very, very interesting, very different, about developing positive action for business recovery. And the day after, on Wednesday, we've got a follow-up with Ed Ryder from Biscuit. You remember the marketing webinar we did a few weeks ago, and how important is strategy to your business right now is the topic. And just to alert you, we also have on the 11th of June David Bailey returning with the latest industry updates, and that will be at 11 AM on the 11th of June. So as always, please stay in touch with us. Let us know if you think we could do anything different in terms of webinars or any other initiative. And thank you for listening, and I'll hand over to Steven Allison from Ideagen. Steven.
Perfect, thank you. Thanks, Sharon, and thanks, Claire. I just want to say, first of all, thank you to the NWAA for giving us the opportunity to host this webinar and out to your database. It is greatly appreciated. And we as an industry, we need to do more of this type of thing, working together. So no, it's greatly appreciated. So the title for this webinar, as you all are probably aware, is APQP PPAP FAIR software tools. And part of the the information that was sent out, for the advertisement of the webinar, was to do with the kind of evolution of quality documentation management. So we're going to get into a wee bit of evolution of some areas. So just to begin with, just some housekeeping for the webinar. Obviously, myself, I'll be hosting the webinar. A wee bit of background about myself, for those of you that don't know. I'm a precision engineer to trade. I held various account management roles within precision engineering for 10 years, and that's into account management, customer management, and order processing, etc. I joined Ideagen in July 2017, so just coming up on 3 years with Ideagen, and enjoying every minute of it. Just a few fun facts about myself. I was a Scottish schoolboy champion on a Kawasaki 60cc for motocross. I competed in the Scottish short circuit racing championship as well for 3 years. and I'm an avid fan of all things mechanical that have an engine: MotoGP, World Superbikes, BSB, road racing, etc. That's a bit about myself. In terms of the webinar, I'm recording the webinar just so that everyone's aware, for sharing out afterwards to the wider group and other people. The sound, I believe everyone's pretty good. Everyone's muted themselves, so I'm not going to worry about muting everyone. But yeah, just if you are unmuted, just be aware that for any noise coming in. And at the end, we're going to have a question and answer session as well on anything that's been shown in the webinar. In terms of, some of you may or may not be aware about Ideagen, who we are, what we do. I'm just going to give a brief overview, a couple of slides. So Ideagen, we're the fastest growing software business in Europe. We focus in the governance, risk and compliance software. So where there's high regulated the industries, such as aerospace and defence, hospitals, NHS, life sciences, accounting, so for the financial auditing, and pharmaceutical companies. We've got about 5,000 companies using the Ideagen suite of products. In terms of our global footprint, our head office is based in Nottingham. We've also got some other offices in the UK. Majority of the workforce is in the UK. I'm based in our Glasgow office. But as you can see there, from a global footprint, we have offices in Texas, North Carolina, Sofia in Bulgaria, Dubai, and then Kuala Lumpur. Those centres of excellence are in Texas, Nottingham, and Kuala Lumpur. Okay, so just moving into the webinar. This is partly to do with the evolution part of the advertisement. So basically, this image, we sometimes take for granted what we have today and forget about what it was like before. We start with something basic and evolve into something more complete using advanced tools and methods. And for me, this slide kind of presents that. You know, obviously it goes back thousands of years, but it just shows you that path. A definition for evolution is something I took from the internet, is the change in the properties of groups of organisms over the course of a generation. So throughout this evolution, we've adapted to change, and we still are today. And this is where the likes of the quality documentation side of it, we are evolving and adapting to what industry is requiring from us. Manufacturing evolution is similar to the evolution of mankind. And what I'm going to do in the next few slides, I'm going to look at it from a manufacturing perspective. So I've put together a small timeline of the evolution of a lathe or a turning machine, etc. Just going back to where my foundations have come from precision engineering. We're going to look at that. So in terms of the evolution and manufacturing of machine tools, the first lathe, I mean, this is stuff that I've researched and had a look at. So the first lathes, there's a very ancient tool, and its first use dates back to 300 BC in Egypt, and this is where the cutting part of it was turning of the lathe. Then if we miss out a big gap because there's not much information in between, we then go to the 18th century, and the treadle lathe begun to make an appearance at that time. And as you can see there from the picture, It's a foot-operated lathe, which helps turn the component to allow you to then start cutting whatever's on there. The thought process is the same from the inventors, if you think about it. How do we make this easier to control and more precise? So then let's look at it a bit further on in time. So in 1718, a Russian engineer, Andrei Nartov, invented the first lathe with a mechanical cutting tool supporting the carriage and a set of gears. One of the key characteristics of this lathe, and this is on the left-hand side, was that the workpiece was turning as opposed to the tool, which essentially was making it a lathe. And then further on down the line, Henry Maudslay, who later developed many improvements to that lathe, worked at the Royal Arsenal from 1783, and that manufacturing and tooling techniques were starting to be used in the defence side. On the right-hand side of the slide, during the Industrial Revolution, steam engines and water wheels, etc., were starting to be introduced. So what it meant was that these lathes could be hooked up to that power source, and that was done through what is known as a shaft assembly line. This basically allowed the businesses to turn the work at a higher speed, which in the end made the work faster and easier to do and more precise. If we then look at the further on, between the late 19th and mid 20th centuries, individual electric motors started to be introduced to lathes and turning machines, etc. And at the beginning of the 1950s, more electronics were starting to be applied, which then evolved into being a numerical controlled and computerized numerical controlled lathes, what we know today and have today. Today, manually controlled and CNC lathes coexist in the manufacturing industries. Throughout the process, the same, as you can see from that timeline, the same from the inventors, the same message has been applied. It's how do we make this easier to control, more precise and repeatable, but we're also now introducing safety into that mix from the machine guards, etc., as you can see on the right-hand side. So just a recap on the evolution of the machine tools. Processing techniques have evolved. So in terms of how we hold the parts, etc., the tooling we use, that's evolved, and that's to make it easier to manufacture. So technology has been evolving throughout. It's to be more precise during manufacture. Again, have that repeatability, to mitigate on the risk on the product, and then also increase safety whilst manufacturing. Quality documentation and methods have evolved in the same way and similar. So I've put together one slide just to look at a short timeline in the quality management side. So in the 1950s, they had manual gauges, quality manuals, processing procedures would have all been handwritten. It would have been handwritten diaries for any audit schedules, if there were any back then. Handwritten reminders for tasks. Everything was done in a manual fashion, which in essence takes it longer to do. You're less likely to be able to have that overview on what's going on within that side of your business. In the 1980s, digital equipment started to be introduced, such as digital gauges. Computers were just started to be introduced. They had been around for a while, but The technology hadn't moved on, and there were still restrictions with computers. Quality manuals and processes were now starting to be held electronically, which brought with it better controls. And then you had your electronic reminders, etc. A bit like we know today with likes of Outlook and your calendars and your reminders that pop up for your diaries. Current situation, what we've got now, so in terms of measurement equipment, we now have full-blown coordinate measurement machines that are programmed and controlled by computers. We have laser machines, we have visual machines that are able to measure those parts and components for any defects, etc. Electronic quality management systems, such as a product of Ideagen's QPulse, is designed to handle those quality related tasks. It removes the admin burden of your QMS, increases the governance, risk and compliance, allows you to focus on what's important rather than that admin function, which back in the 1950s was heavily admin based. And connecting areas of your QMS allow an accurate and efficient analysis at the click of a button. So giving you that visibility of where you are as you stand just by clicking that button. So then we're then leading into APQP, what the webinar is all about. So Advanced Product Quality Planning, otherwise known as AS 9145, New Product Introduction. What is APQP? So it's a framework of procedures and techniques used to develop products. The purpose of APQP is to produce a product quality plan which will support the development and manufacture of a product or service that will satisfy the customer requirements. APQP originally comes from the automotive sector. A lot of us already know that. If I just go back one slide. It's linked to high volume manufacture, and that's why it's kind of starting to come into the aerospace and defence sector. So how has this been driven by industry? So how this is based on me working in this industry and knowing how this is starting to be pulled in. So for new programs and contracts, we know that such as from likes of Airbus and Boeing are starting to drive that contractual requirement for AS 9145 documentation. They're basically wanting the businesses to show evidence of that documentation. Why is aerospace manufacturing doing this? So they're doing this to increase on-time delivery, improve the quality, and shorten the lead times for the parts. By putting these processes in place and going through this methodology, you're able to achieve these things. How is this achieved? So they're driving the requirement for management support. So they're trying to drive that kind of cross-functional team reviews, actions and agreements, and effective project planning. You can see there we've got the 5 phases: planning, product design and development, process design and development, product and process validation, and production. What else is involved within APQP? So PPAP, production part approval process. The PPAP process is designed to demonstrate that a supplier has developed the design production process to meet clients' requirements. Now, a lot of suppliers are build-to-print suppliers, but you'll have your design suppliers as well, design and manufacture suppliers also. But in essence, there are a number of elements that can vary depending on the product, but core elements such as design record, the drawing and the blueprint, the process flow, the design or process FMEA, the control plan, measurement system analysis, statistical process control, and part submission warrant. Process flow, for example, this is something that all manufacturers will do. You'll have a job card, a route card. You're all doing this already, but it's in another system. Your FMEA, where you're risk assessing the areas of the part you're manufacturing, the part you're designing, and how critical those areas are, and how you're going to manufacture it. For example, why use a high-speed steel drill over a carbide drill? Do we know how many holes that can be drilled with that drill? How often we'll need to sharpen or replace it, etc. These are things that you would look at, and typically you're already thinking these things in your organisations, and it's just the documentation side of it. Control plans. What are control plans? What controls are we putting in place to inspect these areas? Are we using go or no-go gauges, etc.? And then MSA, measurement system analysis, reduce the variance in the measurement devices we use, and SPC, validate the process and measurements taken, and measure for stable, prolonged intolerance manufacture. First article, which is involved within the APQP process and the PPAP side of it. A first article is a design verification and design history file, and a formal method of providing a reported measurement for each manufactured feature. So typically that involves ballooning the engineering drawing. You're complying with AS 9102, and then you've got AS 9103 for your key characteristics. So you get forms 1, 2, and 3, and then you've got your materials and process certs. But the FAIR is just a point in time. The PPAP side of it's starting to look at more of the process and controlling that process and ensuring you've mitigated those risks. And then the FAIR comes into it by giving you that point in time how good you are. So the relationship, just thought to put together a very simple slide. I like simplifying things. So you've got your APQP, you've got the 5 phases there, and then where your PPAP relates and where the FAIR relates. So you can see there that the PPAP comes into it in the phase 2 and 3, and then FAIR comes into it in phase 4. Now typically, it really depends. It can be varied depending on what your customer requirements are, depending on those parts that you're manufacturing or assemblies you're manufacturing, depending on what level you have to provide to them. So why software over traditional manual methods? A lot of people are using Excel, they're using PDF, they're using Word to try and manage this process. So why should we be looking at software, which seems the next level in that evolution to move on to? So we're going to get increased visibility of tasks to be managed to completion, ability to make changes quicker because we've got the linkages within the software. We've got a standardized process removing variation, thus risk, reduced re-entry of the same data. So there's mistake proofing built into the software. Reduced admin burden with managing Excel. So Excel files can grow arms and legs, etc., whereas you just want to stick to that standardized process with a little configuration. Increased efficiencies, up to 75% reduction in time because we're linking those processes together. Mistake-proof benefits. and it's a supported method, so it's backed up. Why would we be looking at Ideagen for the APQP and PPAP and FAIR management side of it? So we've got QPulse product management. It's an out of the box product, but it's got high configuration to suit your needs. It's a modular design, so it allows you to implement it module by module. So instead of going full on into it, you can start off small and then build into it. So that gets your team on side and starts to generate the positive feelings around using software to control these areas. A management tool, so you're able to have that quick visibility on what's still to do and allows you to prepare for bottlenecks. In most cases, businesses will, the manufacturing parts are going through manufacture, we're all trying to get things out for end of month invoice, we want to get them out. But sometimes businesses will forget about the documentation, and the documentation is just as important as the physical component nowadays, because you're not able to ship and send those parts until that documentation is done. So having that visibility and that management tool that's looking at all those areas, pulling all those areas together, is key for the operational side of the business. We've got the linkage of all key documents to be provided as evidence. So if we break it down into kind of simple steps, we have got you've got the balloon drawing, you've got which can be done in FAIR, QPulse FAIR. We've got the process flow diagram that can be done in the PPAP module. We've got the FMEA that can be done, and it's linked to the process flow diagram, and then we've got the control plan linking that in there as well. But all these elements, so how are we going to, the variance in the different elements as well, so you're able to configure the system based around what your customer needs are, which can change from time to time. And that is something that we hear a lot within industry, that there's it's not the same for every product. The APQP requirements isn't the same for every product. And having a software that you're able to mold and adapt to that environment is key. And then also with Ideagen, we've got the future proofing with the electronic quality management system, with it being QPulse, QHSE. And that's where we look at, it goes into document control, audit control, CAPA, non-conformance, training and competencies, and occurrence and incidents. Again, we're moving into that software environment. Excuse me. So in terms of customers, just a cap on some of the customers. We've got Triumph, Woodward, Leonardo, Gardner Aerospace, Cobham, Spirit, Meggitt, GKN, all using this suite of product. What challenges are faced with going for that, going for to be asking the question, can we do this? Can we look at doing this? And then how often this image kind of explains how easy or how often we come up against the we are too busy speech bubble, as you can see, when there are easier methods out there, but a lot of it needs to be backed up with what the value is. So that business case generation, what is that value to the business, to the management, and having to pitch that value. And that's something that Ideagen we help with throughout that process. The return on investment, we estimate up to 75% time saving. If I was to say, it would be a minimum of 50% time saving on what you're doing for the quality documentation, creation and completion side of it. But you need to have a solid, especially in current times as well, you need to have a solid return on investment. Again, that is something that we pride ourselves in, because we help build that return on investment and help you look at those areas. Senior, for any projects, for software, etc., senior exec buy-in is key. Without that buy-in or that senior exec sponsorship, the project isn't going to go the distance. But we can help with that pitch to the senior management, to hopefully opening that out to the wider people. And obviously, if you're looking at any type of software, is your IT involvement. It's important to have your IT involved from the very start. There's been many times I went through projects. Everyone, all the departments are all signed up and all want it. Get to the end, and then IT haven't been involved for whatever reason, and then it falls flat because it's not to the IT strategy, the strategy of the IT. So it's very important to have your IT backing from the outset and have them involved, or at least have them, that they're aware of the project that you're looking at. And that is my my webinar presentation. I would just like to open it out to any questions based on what I've presented. First time doing something like this, so even if anyone wants to feedback afterwards as well, it would be appreciated. But yeah, I just want to open it up. Are there any questions?
Steven, just a point from myself. Obviously, this is in the development side of your business. Would progressing to something like this attract R&D tax credits? Or do you not know?
I'm not sure of that. The answer to that, Sharon. That's something I'll take away. In terms of the products, it's there. It's not in any development at all. It's actually there, and it's that side of it.
Yeah, it's developing capability for your business. It's yeah, okay. We do have a webinar coming up covering R&D tax credits, so maybe that's something I'll ask in a few weeks.
That's something for the
for the accountants. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
I'm perfectly happy. I'm going to reach out to everyone just to thank everyone for their time for joining, and obviously I can take questions on after this, Sharon. But again, just want to thank for the opportunity and the time slot to do this with yourselves.
Right. If you send the recording to Claire, we'll make sure it's on the website and available for everyone. So.
No problem. I'll Dropbox it to you, Claire.
Yeah, brilliant.
So you can pick it up for the link. All right.
Fantastic.
Well, everyone.
And thanks, Stephen. Thanks everyone for joining. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.